What if I told you there is a science behind the law of attraction? Well, thinking about manifestation like a science experiment makes it less confusing. Science is like our language, explaining things in a way that makes sense to our logical brains. But we also need to know that science has limits, especially when it comes to figuring out thoughts outside our brains. We're diving into the world of physics and quantum physics, driven by our love for science. Looking at manifestation from a scientific angle makes it less complicated. It's all about energy and how different vibes connect. Starting with thought frequencies. When we talk about frequency, we're essentially talking about waves. Much like light, thoughts behave as waves that spread everywhere. Locating a specific position for these waves, whether for light or thoughts, is challenging unless we monitor them through specific sensors. Examining the frequency of our thoughts involves measuring electromagnetic signals in the brain. Similar to light, thoughts can be seen as a form of electromagnetic radiation. The challenge lies in understanding what frequency a thought is associated with, but it essentially boils down to the energy we invest in our thoughts. Thoughts only gain a measurable frequency when they resonate with us, and we actively feed them our energy. In physics, there's this thing called Planck's law. It says everything with a certain frequency has energy linked to it. But how do we see the frequency of our thoughts? Well, it's all about the energy we put into them, which we feel as emotions. Thoughts don't automatically have a frequency. They get it when we start giving them energy, when they resonate with us. We have tons of thoughts at once, but not all of them resonate or affect our mood. Emotions, like excitement or anxiety, show this energy in our bodies. That tensing feeling, that's the energy we're giving to our thoughts. Why can't we measure thoughts like tiny particles? There is Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. If something acts like a wave with a frequency, it can't have mass at the same time. Thoughts behaving like waves can't have mass. Now, here's a cool thing about waves. They love to resonate. When two waves vibrate at the same frequency, they can interact and get stronger. This wave interaction is what happens in manifestation. Think of yourself as a little radio, always sending out frequencies. Those are the emotions and energy we give to our thoughts. The universe is like a giant radio with different channels or realities, each with its unique frequency. The frequency we're on is determined by what we're sending out from our brain, like a radio signal. In the world of quantum physics, there's quantum jumping. It started with tiny particles like atoms. Imagine atoms as the building blocks of everything. They have even smaller parts: neutrons, protons, and electrons. These electrons, like planets around the sun, can act like waves. Everything with mass also has a frequency, but we can't measure both at the same time. In experiments, when they studied electrons, which we usually call particles because they have mass, they found something wild. When they tried to measure them as waves, they acted like waves, creating patterns. And when they tried to measure them as particles, they behaved like particles. Back to quantum physics. When it came about, we learned that energy at this tiny level is quantized, meaning it exists in specific values. Now, connect this to our frequency, which is basically our emotion. Ever felt your mood change drastically when you shift from one thought to another? It's like having extreme mood swings or a sudden switch in emotions. So, we say thoughts have a frequency, but it's actually based on our emotions. Picture thoughts as the movie we're watching, and our feelings are the energy we give to whatever we're thinking. Thoughts are neutral. It's us, our perceptions, and our emotions that give meaning to each thought. Keep this in mind because thoughts can get intense, shifting from positive to negative in the blink of an eye. There's no structure or order. Thoughts can be chaotic, presenting positive and negative vibes randomly. Once we grab onto a thought, believe it, and start worrying about it, that's when it takes on a life of its own and starts spiraling. It resonates with us because of the frequencies we're sending out. Now, what we're doing in manifestation, scripting, and visualizing, you have to imagine that there are a lot of thoughts floating around in your brain. It is probably related to the specific frequency of reality that you're currently living in, or in other words, the way you're currently feeling. Your thoughts are a reflection, or actually the feeders of the way you're feeling right now. These are probably a few thoughts that are predominant, that keep reoccurring during the day. A lot of our thoughts just repeat during the day, and that's the frequency we're on overall. Now, let's dive into what we're doing with scripting and visualization. We're basically bringing in new thoughts, creating a fresh script, imagining a whole new scenario. The cool part is your emotions can't tell if something is a real event or just a vivid imagination. You can be equally invested in an imaginary scene as in a real 3D space and time event. Imagine your brain as a radio with old frequencies buzzing around through thoughts or visuals. When we introduce a new frequency by scripting or visualizing, especially when the old ones are hanging around, we temporarily jump to a higher frequency. If we consistently do this and our created reality starts to really vibe with us, letting go of the old thoughts and frequencies, that's when we quantum jump. People good at manifesting can do this in an instant, creating a new thought or visual and jumping. Now, how do you make these quantum jumps? Well, you're kind of doing it all the time. Sometimes you might jump down, like when a good mood turns into a negative spiral. But in manifestation, we aim to jump up. It's like manually telling ourselves different things, feeding our minds new thoughts, visuals, and scripts. We want our feelings to hit that higher frequency as often as possible during the day. We walk around pretending we already have what we desire, doing scripting, visualizing, and affirmations. That's how we make a quantum jump to a higher reality. Wondering how our brain's frequency can make things happen in real life? Well, our brains work like detectives, always sticking to patterns and connections. They can only think about stuff they've seen or experienced before, mainly shaped by our belief system, a collection of memories from past events, things people told us, or what we've seen. This belief system is like our thoughts about reality, and it's what we put out into the world. Imagine if you binge watch a bunch of love movies. Suddenly, you start noticing couples everywhere. Not because they weren't there before, but your brain is now tuned to look for them based on what you've been thinking about. That's the idea behind the law of attraction and manifestation. We're getting our brain ready by creating a script or a mental image of the future reality we want. This script or image creates a new pattern in our brain, a whole new reality that isn't in our 3D world yet, but it's there in our minds. And here's the cool brain trick. It loves to connect the dots. Once you have that script or image stored in your brain and you've imagined it, your brain thinks you've been through it. It thinks it's an experience, and that changes how you see the real world. How do you know it's working? First, you'll spot opportunities you never noticed before. If you never pictured yourself as, say, an entrepreneur, you won't even see those chances when they show up because your brain doesn't recognize them. We're using this brain magic by training it beforehand. Your feelings don't care if you actually did those things. They get into that vibe through your emotions. After that, your view of reality shifts. You'll see opportunities and you'll feel super motivated and confident to grab them because your brain thinks you've already been there. Our brains usually work from fear, scared of new things. But with scripting and visualizing, we're tricking our brain into thinking it's been through it already. Let's say you're stepping into a significant venture, like launching a new project or business. As you vividly picture yourself overcoming challenges and witnessing success, your brain treats it like a lived experience. This mental rehearsal not only makes the actual process less intimidating, but also boosts your confidence. Now, let's think about a crucial presentation you have to make. Visualizing the entire scenario, including the audience, signals to your brain that you've navigated this situation before. When the presentation day arrives, it feels less daunting, and you're better equipped to seize opportunities. In conclusion, our ability to manifest and shape our reality is intricately connected to the frequencies of our thoughts and emotions. By understanding how our brain processes these frequencies, we unlock the power to quantum, jump into higher versions of ourselves, and attract the opportunities we seek. Thanks for your engagement. Kindly hit like and subscribe. See you in next video.